It's the night before the NFL season for 2021. This is the Irish NFL Show's season preview, presented by Trust Gaming, presented also by our friends over at the Rolling Donut. Thank you very much for the donuts. We'll probably eat them later on, I presume. They're not here, but they're here. Folks, it is the night before the season, as we said. The Bucs play the Cowboys tomorrow night, but now we are going to go through each team, each division, and more importantly, give our picks for who is going to be lifting the Lombardi Trophy in Los Angeles in February, and I can't wait to hear some of these points picks. It's going to be great crack. Okay, we're going to start off with the NFC West. Colin, do you want to start us off? You're looking at the Niners.
Yeah, they talk about a storied franchise, but I want to begin this by taking you back to 2005. Denver Broncos had an absolutely unbelievable season, right? I know, I had to start with the Broncos. And they gave Tom Brady his first ever playoff loss. Remember that one, Mark?
Yeah.
Then the Broncos were at home to the number 6 seeds, the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was set. The Broncos were going to win this, right? And then it all fell apart. Jake Plummer, it didn't work. It was an awful game. The Broncos never got going. Mike Shanahan lost faith in Jake Plummer at that point, and the Broncos went and drafted Jay Cutler. Now I want to take you to 2019, and the San Francisco 49ers are playing the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. There's about 2.5 minutes to go. 49ers have the ball. They are moving down the field. They have a chance to win this. They're 4 points down. What happens with Jimmy G? He messes it up completely. 3 failed attempts, famously overthrowing Emmanuel Sanders. And at that point, I am convinced Kyle Shanahan said, no, I am done here. But he didn't have enough time to assess the quarterbacks, I think, for that year's draft. But he decided, no, we're done. So what did they do this year? They traded the farm. And you have to remember what they gave away to move up to get Trey Lance. Now, the big question for the 49ers is, when does Trey Lance start? I'm with Sam Monson. Start him week 1. Take the Band-Aid off. Just start him. The guy he's hardly played for 2 years. What is going to be gained by him sitting on the sidelines with a clipboard? Nothing. Get him in there early. But that'll be my view. I don't think they do that. I think what they do is Jimmy G starts for a couple of weeks. Somebody goes down injured, and the 49ers get a whole load of picks back from a desperate team, and they get a haul. That's what I imagine they'll do. Last year, the Niners were beset by injuries, absolutely horrific injuries. That won't be the case this year. Kittle is back, Nick Bosa is back, and Nick Bosa is vaccinated, which didn't look like it was going to be the case earlier in the summer, but that's a big talking point. New DC, youngest DC in the league. He's 35. He was playing linebacker in the league in 2015. So he's very young. I'm really interested to see what changes on the defensive side. But look, they are a serious outfit. Whoever they play at quarterback during the regular season, they will be a threat given the options that they have, given Kyle Shanahan play calling. It'll be running back by committee with the fullback thrown in. With Trey Lance and his ability to run, nobody's going to know what angle they're coming from. This 49ers team is serious. They're in the toughest division, I think, in football, but I think they are going to be a serious threat to whoever they face over the course of the regular season.
Can't wait to see when Trey Lance goes on the field for the first time. Take your bets. Brian, you're looking at the Rams.
Can I make a quick point on the Niners first?
Go for
2
it.
points. You touched on Kyle Shanahan's play calling. If he had to continue with the run game in the drive lead prior to that one, they may not have been in that situation where they needed Jimmy G to be throwing the ball at the end. And great point by Michael Lombardi during the week. He said there's only one set of fans looking for Trey Lance to start, and that's the ones on Twitter, because everybody within the organisation knows he's not ready to be a quarterback just yet in the league. And Jimmy G actually gives him their best opportunity to win. So interesting. But we'll see how it goes. As opposed to the Patriots, they know Jones is ready. I don't think Lance is ready just yet. The Rams, another serious team. This division is stacked. Cardinals last year nearly made the playoffs. 4 really good sides in this division. But the storyline very early on, even before last season ended, was the trade of Matthew Stafford from the Lions. Gives them a legitimate quarterback. I think the stage had come where McVay ran out of patience with Goff. But McVay has been play calling for the past 3 or 4 years, and O'Connell, the offensive coordinator, has had very little to do. The Chargers tried to take him this season, in the off-season, because they wanted him to make the new offensive coordinator, and McVay has agreed that he will really, hand back the reins to him. So it'll be interesting to see how we go with Stafford. For me, the offensive line is still a concern. Whitworth is hitting nearly 40. They've bringing 2 players back from injury. They've lost the centre to the Chiefs. He was a really good player for them. Deshaun Jackson has come in. He's kind of the take it off the top player in terms of downfield threat, but he's had a lot of injuries. But this defense is stacked. And even in that playoff game last year in which they lost to the Packers, for 3 quarters they were still in the game, and that was with Aaron Donald struggling with an injury. They're a serious threat for me to go towards the Super Bowl. You asked the question, funny enough, very early on in the off-season, who do I see going towards the Super Bowl? Who's the serious team? And that was February, March, and before they've even done all the off-season stuff, and it was the Rams for me. The running back situation is a concern. They've just brought in Sony Michel from the Patriots. They've lost Akers for the season. They've also lost Calais, who was actually really starting to look an efficient run back. So it's going to be a lot on Darrell Henderson's legs in terms of him being the effective running back with Sony coming in. But for me, they're going to be a serious threat. And so this division is one of the most competitive in the league. And you could argue 3 teams will come out of the division for the playoffs.
Yep. Sony Michel, Roberto Duran. He's got hands of stone. So don't expect Rams fans any kind of catches out of the backfield from him. That's all I'll warn you.
Yeah, but armed with Aaron Donald is the best player in his position in the league by such a distance. He is a phenomenon. I love watching. One of the things I'm genuinely excited about is watching Aaron Donald play defense, because he's a wrecking ball. And if he'd been fit against the Packers, I think they'd have won that game.
And there's a caveat you put on that I would say there's an argument Aaron Donald's the best player in the NFL, full stop. Not just at his position, just across the board.
Absolutely.
You're looking at, it's going to be a very interesting season for Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. This is some division. What's going to happen?
It is. I mean, Colin said it. This is the most stacked division in the entire league. This is the best division. It's got the most probably talent across the board. You can make a viable argument for every one of these 4 teams to win the division and to make a splash in the playoffs and potentially go all the way to raise the Lombardi Trophy. The Cardinals are an interesting case. You mentioned about Kyler. Keim and Kingsbury, the GM and the coach, are also the 2 Ks here that are very important because the 2 of them are on the hot seat. Let's not make no bones about it. This is the 3rd year of Kingsbury's air raid offense. And last year, unfortunately, the air raid got grounded a few more times. Don't forget, the Cards could have made the playoffs. They lost 5 of the last 7 games last season. I mean, they really blew their opportunity there in many respects. And what they've tried to do is make a splash in various ways. J.J. Watt famously said, I only want to go to a contender. And he deemed that the Cardinals, with the 18 or 20 million, I'm trying to remember what it is they're paying him, are a sufficient contender for his perspective. If JJ is even 75% of the player he previously was, that's going to be fantastic for that Cards pass rush. Opposite Chandler Jones, the key bookend. They drafted Zaven Collins in the first round, so that's going to help shore up that defense even further. And on offense, Kyler is a dynamic playmaker. They've brought in AJ Green to see what's maybe left in his mileage tank as well. But some of the smaller moves I actually like as well. They lost 2 games last season because of special teams mess-ups, because of field goal mess-ups. So what have they done? They've brought in Matt Prater on a 2-year deal. It isn't sexy. It isn't the biggest splash in free agency, but he's one of the sure-footed kickers in the league. And so hopefully they don't get cursed like other teams. San Diego or Los Angeles Chargers, where are you? And they cause that special teams aberration to be a 1-year blip. They have problems, though. Malcolm Butler, out of nowhere, has announced his retirement. He's been put on the retired list due to personal reasons. They were banking on him shoring up that cornerback position because of Patrick Peterson's departure. So, this is not a perfect team. They're going to be relying so much on output from a couple of key players and a couple of key stars along the way. But again, just thinking about some of the other moves, Rodney Hudson coming in, shoring him up for 3 years on a $30 million deal. Probably, for me, the second best center in the league. James Conner picking him up from the Steelers to hopefully release some of that pressure in a really solid run game. If they work and it clicks, it can be magic. For me, they've probably got too much to do in this division. But last season, I wanted them to get it, and they blew it. If they don't get to the playoffs this season, Cliff could be gone, Keim could be gone, and it could be new reign order for Kyler for the next season.
Yeah, I remember actually sitting in Belfast talking and seeing the J.J. Watt news, and it blew my mind. That was in March as well. Have you something to say on the Cardinals before we move on?
Yeah, just two quick points. JJ could have got more money elsewhere, right? He stayed. I think the weather played a part in that as you get older. I think it's very similar to Steve Nash and the Phoenix Suns. And the other thing that we've talked about the Cardinals, there's one name that we haven't mentioned, and it's a big miss, and they're going to miss him. That's Larry Fitz.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is Larry going to play this year? He still hasn't officially announced his retirement. Some rumors that he might take a 1-year deal to go back to Minnesota. Will he? I don't know. But Larry Fitz has been such an institution in this league for so long. To not have him available, to not have him on the sideline, to not have him mentoring those young teammates, I think that's a big loss for the Cards.
So when I looked at the signings that were coming in, I felt 8-8 last year, missed out in the playoffs in week 17, and they looked at it from a point of view of experienced players coming in to help the young team, not necessarily on the field, but off the field in terms of the locker room. Experienced players, JJ Watt, Butler, as it happens now, was gone, and AJ Green. But the type of players that they'd say, you know what, we're not that far off. We just need some players that know how to do it in this league, have been around for a couple of years, and will help guys within the locker room more so than actually on the field. But it's a very difficult division, as we've said.
Yeah.
It is, and actually, so we touched a little bit on the other teams. I should have also mentioned, when we talk about stars in this division, we should also talk about the coaching staffs, because actually the O coordinators and D coordinators in many of these teams are some of the best in the business. Vance Joseph obviously has really revolutionized the Cards there, and we all know his talents, guys, don't we? So he is an excellent D coordinator for all these other sins. But there may also be a little bit of dysfunction there. Chandler Jones made a trade request, or allegedly multiple trade requests during the offseason as well. So you never know until players take the field as to how it's all going to sync together. But interesting times abound, Michael.
Well, going on what you said about the Cardinals, the next team you're talking about, if this doesn't happen this year for the playoffs, there could be ramifications. The Seattle Seahawks, 9 out of the last 11 years have had a playoff appearance. Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, that combination, is this the year that could peak or come to an end? It is intriguing, gentlemen. Looking at Russell Wilson, he spent more time in Italy over the summer than any of us got to go on our holidays, and it was an absolute disgrace. But Russell Wilson, at his best, is the best, well, in my opinion, top 2, top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. No doubt about it. This Seattle team has been up there over the last 10 years, and at their best, they're unbelievable. I've seen it in my own team getting hammered in the Super Bowl. But for me this year, they have no excuses. On the offense, for a start, having guys like Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, a new OC, and Shane Waldron, the ceiling is a Super Bowl appearance. The floor could be bye-bye to either Pete Carroll or Russell Wilson. And if I'm Russell Wilson, I'm looking at this team and going, if he doesn't win it this year, where does he go? The division has changed so much in the last 5 or 6 years. Whenever the Seahawks were at their best, whenever they peaked winning the Super Bowl, and then even getting to the Super Bowl the year after against the Patriots, that division was nowhere near as strong as it is. And I actually think they could struggle this year. They need to get their running backs working properly. Last year, they didn't have enough efficiency there. And I would be concerned at, if they went on a 2 or 3 week run where they're winning games, I don't think they could actually pick it up for 17, 18 weeks. And for me, I actually think this year the Seahawks won't make the playoffs. I have the Seahawks, finishing 4th in the NFC West. So, yeah, that's mine. Very quickly, because we spent a lot of time in this one, who's winning the division?
For me, it's the Rams.
Rams,
runaway winners. NFC North. So Packers, Vikings, Lions, Bears. Packers won the division last year, and quite frankly, won the offseason because it got ridiculous at one point. Draft night was great crack, boys. Great crack on Aaron Rodgers. Thank you for that. Aaron Rodgers comes back. Mark, I'll start with you. You're looking at the Bears, and obviously the Messiah has came.
Absolutely. In nomine Patri, Ifi, Spiriti Sancti. If you are in any way religious, don't worry, because the second coming of Christ truly has visited upon us. Justin Fields has joined the Bears, and I love you dearly, but for any Bears fans out there and fan sites, the hype around Justin Fields, the 4th quarterback drafted in the draft, is beyond parallel. We get it, okay? The Bears have never had a good quarterback. Jay Cutler probably, I think, holds nearly all of their main passing records. We understand that even when you won in 85 with Jim McMahon, he wasn't the greatest quarterback that ever existed. God, there are Bears fans that still look fondly on with Jim Harbaugh and go back to Sammy Bohr and these types of players back in the day. So we understand you're excited about getting a quarterback. But you mentioned about Trey Lance. Justin Fields isn't starting week 1. for the Chicago Bears either. He hasn't won the starting job over the Red Rocket, Andy Dalton. And you can call that, conservatism. You can say, well, it's only a matter of time before he does start. But the reality is, Matt Nagy is fighting for his job this season. Many people are surprised even Matt Nagy has a job this season, in fairness, as the Bears head coach. And so the fact that he's not willing to hand over the reins to the Messiah is slightly concerning. They have the weapons. Look, on offense, they have plenty of weapons. They have Column's favorite player, Allen Robinson, free the Chicago one. They might actually give him some support this season. Cole Kmet, for me, actually a tight end. He's got Jimmy Graham actually backing him up this season. But Cole Kmet has real potential to be a breakout player here in his second season. And that's even without talking about their really efficient running game, David Montgomery, so many great things. I could talk about their defense all day because they have an amazing defense. Khalil Mack, Roquan Smith, absolute standouts across the board. But they have gaps. Robert Quinn, who they brought in as a big free agency move last season, delivered a grand total of 2 sacks for them. That's not what you expect when you're giving someone a $70 million contract with $30 million guaranteed. So is there upside from him? Potentially, but could he be an expensive bust? Equally, that could be a concern that they've got to deal with. And really what I want to think about is Sean Desai is their new defensive coordinator there. Defensive coordinator there. I mean, can he continue that momentum that they've generated in that really solid defense? Basically, the Bears' formula is very similar. We're going to talk about the Broncos later, guys, don't worry. But it's very similar to a number of teams. Can they get there with really solid defense or exceptional defense being continued on and just up-leveling that offensive game in relation to it? I say, ultimately, no, because I don't think that they are functional enough to get there. But before we get too carried away on defense, actually one stat. How many takeaways have the Bears had in the last 2 years?
1.
Not quite that bad. They've had 37 in the last 2 years. That's too low for a so-called elite defense. So can they raise that? Can they raise Robert Quinn? Can they get more consistency out of their offense and offensive play? With their offensive line and the porous nature of it, I say that's going to be what holds them back and ultimately dooms them. Whether you've got Andy Dalton, Jesus Christ himself, or his father at quarterback back there.
I think what dooms them is Matt Nagy. You're saying that Nagy didn't make the decision and Nagy's fighting for his job. Nagy's fighting for his job because he makes poor decisions. Yep. Everyone, I get it. Like, there's been a lot of hype about Justin Fields. I get why, though. I understand he's a very talented QB. Yeah, did he go top 1, 2, 3? No, he's the 4th taken. Patrick Mahomes wasn't the first quarterback taken. I'm not expecting Justin Fields to be that. But when I hear Matt Nagy say, the reason I'm going with Andy Dalton, I made a verbal promise to Andy Dalton. Well, Matt, that's why you're in the situation that you're in. Ridiculous. You go with the best QB, not because you made some promise. Forget about it. Matt Nagy's out of a job at the end of the season, and the Bears can move on.
And you mentioned Pat Mahomes, though. What did Pat Mahomes do for his first season? He sat for 15 games behind Alex Smith, only started in the 16th game. So you've got to give these guys time.
But maybe Justin Fields should sit for a season. There's all this talk, the second coming of Christ, etc. Sit for the season. Learn from your offense. Learn from your team. Become that quarterback Chicago deserve. The Bears are not going to win the Super Bowl this year, even if Fields does walk on week 4. The thing that would annoy me is if Fields walks in week 3, week 4, when Soldier Field's booing, oh yeah, Justin Fields comes in. No, he's not ready. Preseason games count for nothing. I know we've been bigging him up over the last month because we miss football. They count for nothing. He hasn't played it down in the NFL yet. He's got a lot of potential. But how many quarterbacks over the last 15 years have had a lot of potential, gentlemen, and have done Sweet Family Album? I would love Justin Fields to get there. I'm so bitter that the Broncos didn't pick him up. But, I mean, it's going to tell. I reckon, Brian, he'll be on by week 3, second quarter. They'll be calling for him.
I actually agree with the decision to start Andy Dalton. Week 1, away to the Rams in the stadium. It's the first proper game in that stadium where they're going to have fans. The Rams defense is going to be swarming over whatever quarterback is there. I think they start with Andy Dalton. I'd say week 4, when they play the Lions at home, is a perfect time to bring him in. And one final point in the Bears, which we haven't touched on, their offensive line. So when we were doing the mock drafts and when all these mock drafts are around, a lot of people had the Bears picking Tevin Jenkins in the 4th round. As it happens, they got him in the 2nd round. Yeah. He's gone for the foreseeable, 3 to 4 months with a back injury. They brought in Peters, who had a great career with the Eagles. But the reason why the Eagles let him go is he's continuously injured and he's 39 years of age.
Yeah.
And the likelihood is he will start. The offensive line will struggle, and whatever quarterback is behind him, Fields at some stage will play, and he will help that offensive line, but not in terms of going for the playoffs.
Brian, what offensive line?
Look, I'll go with the Packers here, but very quickly. If your phone's at 19% and you need to charge it for work the next morning, you don't pull it out at 40% thinking you'll get it done all day. Justin Fields isn't ready. And we can video this and screenshot this. Give him time. Give him a year. Don't give him any pressure. Look at situations where you've brought in quarterbacks. Drew Lock's an example. He probably wasn't ready. Anyway, look, we can talk about this all day. The Packers, one of the most historic franchises in this league, gentlemen. One game away from the Super Bowl last year, and it was the summer of Rodgers. It was the spring of Rodgers. Adam Schefter had a field day with it. It was a hell of a 6 months. At one point, I thought my team was going to get Aaron Rodgers, and I genuinely thought for a long time he was gone. He's not. It looks though that this is his last dance. His last dance brings guys in like Randall Cobb. But do you know what, boys? Before we even talk about the defense, it seems to me that Aaron Rodgers is that good of a player. He could bring in a half-decent wide receiver, third or fourth string wide receiver from any team in the league and turn him into a guy to score 6 or 7 touchdowns a season. This Packers team I actually don't think they'll run away with this division. I don't. I think it'll be close between them and somebody else, which haven't been talked about yet. But Aaron Jones is vital for this team. $48 million extension in the offseason. 30 touchdowns in 30 games over the last 2 years. Robert Tonyan at tight end is so good. But can they do it? We talked earlier on, my team, the Seahawks, earlier on, saying that their ceiling is a Super Bowl. That's the floor for the Packers. The fans expect that this season. Aaron Rodgers has won 1 ring in, 10, 11 years? You'd like to think a guy that elite will take him to the Super Bowl this year because they have the talent, they have the defense, they've got a new defensive coordinator in Joe Barry. They have no excuses this year. It's put up or shut up. It's a very hard NFC to actually get through. Will they do it? I don't know. But I think they're going to be in for more trouble in that division than they think of. And, fans were wishing to get Rodgers back all summer. He created a massive storm. Has that storm sealed is the question. Colm, you're looking at the Vikings?
Yeah, the Vikes, who traditionally do well in odd-numbered years under Mike Zimmer, but I think there might not be a more frustrated man in all of the NFL than Mike Zimmer at the moment. His starting QB isn't vaccinated, his backup QB isn't vaccinated, and both of those had to miss a week of training camp where they just had to bring guys in off the street to throw the ball. Kirk Cousins says that he wants to do everything to help this team win. Go get vaccinated. Why? How do you game plan when you don't know if your QB is going to get pulled because they're a close contact? They've tried bringing in an epidemiologist. They've tried doing everything they can. The Vikes have the lowest rate of vaccination, certainly the stats I've seen, of anyone in the league. It's got to, for Zimmer, whose seat is pretty hot up there in Minnesota, he has got to be pulling his hair out. Add to that, their first round pick, Darashaw, brought him in as to fix that line at left tackle. He had surgery on a groin injury in January. They thought it was fixed. He had surgery again at the beginning of August. Zimmer came out and said, we didn't expect this. We were told it was fixed in January. It's got to be a nightmare if you're Mike Zimmer right now. Also, Zimmer prides himself on being a defensive coordinator. His team were the best defense in the NFL in 2017. Last year, 29th. Talk about a fall from grace. It has not been happy up in Minnesota. They have lots of players returning from injury. They've tried bringing in a lot of guys in free agency. Look, any team that has Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson always has a puncher's chance. But it's definitely, I think, the last chance saloon for Mike Zimmer in Minnesota. You shouldn't have to spend too long in the Lions, should you?
I was happy to get the Lions because of all the teams in the division, there's very little expectation. Mark's touched on the Bears fans and their need to see the quarterback. Zimmer's on the hot seat. We spoke all summer about, I think he'd be the first head coach gone. You've obviously, got the easy team, shall we say, but the Lions have little expectation. Dan Campbell has come in as the head coach, and by all accounts, he's really enjoys the place. His press conferences are enjoyed to watch. Last year was a disaster. Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia, we were fortunate to interview Graham Glasgow, and he made it very clear about what most of the Lions players felt about their time working under Matt Patricia. They brought in Goff. You know, and he at the end of the day, Goff has gone to a Super Bowl, okay, and he was a high pick in the draft. It didn't work out, but again, that'll probably suit him indoors for a majority of the season. But I look at they've lost a lot of players. I mean, the experienced players. Trufant is gone. Danny Shelton's gone on the defensive side. Galladay's gone to the Giants. Marvin Jones has been a very efficient wide receiver. He's gone to the Jags. They've been crippled in terms of other players they've lost. You look at what they brought in: Tyrell Williams, Jamal Williams, the running back from the Packers. Good players, but are they number one players in their positions? Previously, no. They've moved on a free agent to get the money, and they've got a number of picks next year. So for me, they're in a very difficult division. I even looked at the schedule: 49ers at home, Packers away, Ravens at home, Bears, Vikings. I mean, you could argue they might even win a game for October. But next year is a key year for them because they've got all the picks, and I don't see them having a very good season. I look at them maybe a 4 to 5 win team at the bottom of the division.
Who's winning the division?
Packers in a canter.
Packers by November.
Ooh.
Yeah, Packers all day long.
Vikings. The Vikings are going to win the division in week 18. And it could be a sorry ending for Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. Lads, let's take a break. We'll be back in a moment. We're going to look at the NFC South and the NFC East. Okay, welcome back into the Irish NFL show season preview. Season kickoff tomorrow night. Bucks against the Cowboys. Season kickoff show 9 o'clock tomorrow night. Be there or be square. Talking about being there or being square. The Saints in the NFC South. Hard off season for the Saints in the last month. But what's your thoughts ahead of the season, Brand?
Hard off season and probably very hard 4 or 5 years for Saints fans because whilst they've had really good years, you know, I think the time has come now. It's the first time they'll start a new quarterback since 2006. And when I was doing the preview, I was thinking of Saints fans, and they've had so many great years, but at the same time, they probably have to be one of the most frustrated set of fans in the league. You think back to the Minneapolis Miracle, the following year, the Roby Cohn pass interference that wasn't a wild card game against the Vikings that they threw away. And a lot of people felt that going into the third quarter of that playoff game against the Bucks, they were in a position to win the game, and there was some very silly plays and fumbles which turned the game on its head in the Bucks' favour. Jameis Winston is the quarterback going forward. I thought he would because I feel they used Taysom Hill very effectively in terms of that swift arm. You know, so for him to be the quarterback for the season didn't make sense. But I look at the team going forward. Kamara is the main guy, and I imagine teams will just literally will focus on him. Their wide receivers, Michael Thomas is out till October. Even if he does come back to be an effective wide receiver that we know he can be, there's trouble there. You know, we know that him and Sean Payton have had disagreements. The whole fact that he had an operation in June that could have taken place at the end of the last season. And then I look at their wide receivers. Raquan Smith Galloway is having a good training camp. Deontay Harris, Juwan Johnson, not standout players for me. I just feel that they've come to the end of the road. They've had their opportunities. I've touched on it there. They've so many difficult losses. This team really should have won a Super Bowl, and Drew Brees probably deserved a Super Bowl, but it's not to be. And for me, they're going to have a very difficult season. I think they're going to go from being a playoff team to be literally being at the bottom of the division. So for me, the Saints are going to fall off the cliff this year.
Yeah, and the Saints obviously starting off the season playing the Packers at Jacksonville Stadium. Could have done it in London or Dublin, but I mean, who knows? I'm looking at the Falcons. The Falcons are a team that have, well, they've got a new head coach as well. Look, Kyle Pitts coming in at tight end is a very interesting option for this team. Again, though, is he ready to go? A lot of people are saying he's ready to go week one, right? He's obviously going to be playing week one, but is he ready for that push-up from college football to the NFL? I don't know. It might take time for him to embed himself in the team. Matt Ryan, 36 years of age. Is this his last season for the Falcons? Is he looking... I love how you were shaking your head, Mark. It probably isn't, but is he looking at this division going, am I ever going to catch a break? Falcons are London bound as well. We're excited to see them against the Jets. That's going to be a great game, boys. Julio Jones gone's a massive loss for this team. I like they scored 24.8 average points per game last year, 16th in the league. Are they going to get to that level this year? They're going to need a good running game. They're going to need a good flux on both the offense and defense. I just don't know if they can match that 24.8 points a game. If they do, and have a revival potentially on the team with a new head coach, they could find a new level. I just think personally the Falcons might be a little bit under it, but with a new head coach and a new OC as well coming in, it could be an interesting time for them. But they'll probably miss the playoffs, to be honest. Colm, you're looking at
Panthers.
The Panthers, yes.
Yeah, so Panthers had 11 games decided by one score in 2020. They pinned that on Teddy Bridgewater, and their response to that was to bring in Sam Darnold. The big question, is he still seeing ghosts? And we're going to find out pretty quick, I think. I think like Matt Rule is a very good coach, and Matt Rule is a program builder. We saw that in his college career. Like, he tends to, first season he kind of finds out what's going on, second season improve, and it really springs into the third. I think that they are going to regret not taking Justin Fields in the draft. I'm not a believer in Sam Darnold. I don't think, he was in a bad situation at the Jets. Yes, he had Adam Gase as his head coach, but he didn't help himself. I don't think he takes the Panthers over the top. Christian McCaffrey comes back. That's great. Like, one of the most dynamic players in the league. He's fantastic. Questions about the line, huge questions about the line and how effective they can be. I expect them to be better defensively. Brian Burns, Jeremy Chin, and now they've added JC Horn. You expect them to make plays, but I think in this division, which isn't particularly strong, but all the teams are kind of in and around the same mark. I just think Sam Darnold, like, if they had gone with a QB with more upside rather than having to pay Sam Darnold, it could be very different. Can
I ask you a very good question? Is Sam Darnold a level up from Teddy Bridgewater?
Not much. I think they're very, very similar QBs. I'd put him in the somewhere in the 20 to 25th in terms of if we're ranking QBs in this league.
Sometimes the schedule actually helps you, because if he starts off the season well, they're home to the Jets and they're home to the Saints week 1, week 2. If he starts off and has a couple of good games, doesn't necessarily have to light it up, but efficient games, Matt Rule seems to be a really good head coach, and I think that will help him move on and get the confidence going. And I actually do think he will have a good season. I'm not necessarily saying they'll go to the playoffs, but I think it's an improvement. I don't necessarily would compare him to Bridgewater, because they're in two different stages of their careers. He's had a difficult few years in the Jets where he got very little support. He needs a brand new fresh start. Teddy's on the other side of his career, a game management situation where he's gone to Denver. Yeah,
Sam Darnold is going to be now this year or next few years version of Sam Bradford. Everyone's going to think they can fix him. He was a high, really young first-round pick. We can fix him. We can do this with him and everything. Sam Bradford, of course, never had a winning season anywhere he went and everything. So let's hope that's the only parallel that's drawn for Sam Darnold.
Who the hell gave you the Bucks?
This is just a random draw that occurred. Look, everybody knows my personal man crush on Tom Brady. Did I mention 43 years old, 7 Super Bowl rings at this stage, every record that God is willing to grant, including the passing yardage record, which is almost odds-on guaranteed to break in the first couple of weeks of this season. I think the NFL has scheduled a primetime game for week 4, just about when it's planned to go. So it's funny, though, sometimes these things don't work out. I remember the NFL scheduled, Brady was on a record to beat Breeze's games for most games with 1+ passing touchdowns. So they scheduled Pats versus Saints prime time for that game that would have been the record breaker. And 2 weeks before, the Patriots were held to 6 points by the Bungles of all people. So, sometimes the best laid plans of mice and men. But yeah, to wrap up, I do have the Bucs in this particular division. I hardly agree with a lot of what you guys are saying about the other teams. And this is the reality why the Bucs are in a strong position this year. Mostly, we've seen regression from others. I do think the Panthers will be solid, but how solid can they be with Sam Darnold there? C-Mac, hopefully, run CMC, will be healthy for the whole season. But we're talking about 8-9, 9-8 type season at best, not stretching the division win. Saints, unfortunately, they've got the Bucs' old quarterback, Jameis Winston, who left the Bucs going 30 for 30. That's 30 TDs and 30 interceptions, unfortunately, which is an unwanted record. And much as I kind of love Kyle Pitts and I love Arthur Smith and obviously what they can potentially do in the Falcons, it's a season too soon. Tom Brady has never lost to the Falcons as well, so it's nice for him to see them twice this year. Look, the Bucs story, you've heard it all before. They're returning all 22 starters on offense and defense. Shock. That's news to everybody, I'm sure. But they also have a 100% vaccination rate. They also, if we go by strength of schedule, have the 29th easiest. The 29th easiest. I'm saying that the wrong way around. The third easiest strength of schedule in this season. And, they've added bonus players along the way, like Joe Tryon, who's now Joe Tryon Shinokwa, has fallen to them in the first round of the draft. OJ Howard's come back from injury that bolsters that tight end position. And so, all is good. But truly, I'm going to end with one question. How good are they? Because last season they had a 3-game stretch at home. The Rams, the Saints, the Chiefs, they lost all the games. And we thought, Brady's a bust, this is a bust. Even last season when they won the Super Bowl, they had 5 games in a row after the bye against teams with losing records. And that offense didn't truly click until arguably the Super Bowl. So how good are they and how consistent can they be are 2 key questions. But my God, do they have a nice division to figure that out in.
I mean, we could talk about we could talk about this all day. The Chiefs didn't turn up in the Super Bowl. That would be my argument. We all get the Bucs.
Yes,
absolutely.
I actually think Brady could sit out the last 5 weeks of the season. This is how the 18th week has happened for him. The best division in football up next, the NFC East. The Washington football team were champions last year. Mark, I'll not start with you. I'll start with Brian. You've got America's team, the Cowboys. Dak Prescott back from an injury. Actually felt horrible for him when he went down last year. Surely it's a big season for Dak Prescott in this easily winnable division, yeah?
6 games over 500 this century. But yet every year, this is the Cowboys' year. It reminds me of Liverpool for so long. This is the year. Dak Prescott. The thing about Dak Prescott with this injury is he's now got a shoulder injury. And they're going to monitor him throughout the season. And it's come because of the nature of how he chose the ball and the pressure he's putting on his right ankle. So already there's kind of concerns around. And Jerry Jones can come out with all these conversations around. He's like the squirrel. He's just storing his nuts and he'll be back in the winter. And he'll be very efficient. He can say all these things. But the reality is it's going to take time. It's going to take time for him to be back to the player he was. Ezekiel Elliott last year was very poor. I keep hearing from people that he's going to have a really good season. Based on what? Because he looks a little bit leaner in this offseason. We really don't know. So they've got a very good offense. The tight end came in, Schultz. I think it's the 4th round, 2018, really good. Jarvin was injured last year. When he played, he was very efficient. CeeDee Lamb looked a real wide receiver last year. Cooper, we know he can be good. But for me, it's not actually about Dak. It's about this defense. They brought in Dan Quinn from the Falcons, ironically, who had the 31st worst defense in the league last year, just slightly under the Cowboys, who were 30th. But yeah, he's the man that's been brought in to fix this defense. 14 of the 21 players they brought in off-season are defense. 8 of the 11 players drafted are defense. They're now saying they're going to focus their attention solely on Micah Parsons, the 1st-round pick, to be the player that's going to lead this defense. Van Der Esch all of a sudden is like the player in the past, even though he's only 2 or 3 years in the league. It's all about Micah Parsons. That's the big question for me. Will this defense be the defense we saw a couple of years ago? This offense will do really well when Dak gets settled into a new season. But for me, big concerns around this defense, and that's why I don't believe they'll win the division.
And 10 years on from the Giants winning the Super Bowl, it's been a hell of a 10 years in New York for both the Jets and the Giants. Colin, are the Giants going to win the NFC East this year?
So this is Dave Gettleman's 4th year, and Brian's going to hate this. Entering year 4, he currently sits at 15-33. It is the worst stretch of Giants football in nearly 50 years. Things have to change, or there'll be new GM in place next year. It's as simple as that. Now, the issue for the Giants is they were the talk of the NFL during training camp. There was the brawl where your franchise QB is at the bottom of the pile. You don't want to see that. 4 players retiring, right? For different reasons, but it's what everyone has been talking about. Now, you also have the O-line, right? Where Gettleman's trying to put it together with 2 weeks to go to the season. That's all the negative stuff. That can either bring a team together or they can fall apart. I really think the Giants are the boom or bust team in the league this year. I think it could go either way. Daniel Jones is going to be really interesting. Can Gettleman get a line together to give him a fighting chance? I think that's what he needs. You need to give a young QB the opportunity to at least stand upright for a while. They were really intriguing, in fairness, in free agency in the draft. Loads of playmakers. This team has a ton of playmakers. How fit is Barkley? That's the question. When will he can get fully up to speed? On defense, really solid last year. Expect them to be really solid again this year. Can they win it? Absolutely. Like, they could blow the opposition away. Will they? It'll be really interesting to see about this team. I could see them winning 4 games. I could see them winning 11 games.
Probably going to be 4 if I had an opinion on it. I'm going to very quickly look at the Eagles. We had a pretty good offseason with the Eagles. We spoke to Alex Singleton, came on the show. He was very high up on this team, calling them underdogs, saying the defense is very underrated. They looked impressive in pre-season. I think they actually shut a team out in pre-season.
They got shut out.
They got shut out. There you go. That shows you about my sleeping pattern. Who was that team?
Patriots.
Patriots.
Oh yeah.
Shut them out.
God's answer, Max. Talk about that in a minute. I don't know what to think of the Eagles this year, lads. I don't know. This division just every year comes up with certain situations, and it's like, is this ever going to get its act together? I love the Gardner Minshew trade. I absolutely love it. And isn't there a clause in the trade with having to play more than 4 games a season? There's another pick, yeah? Mark,
it goes up to a 5th.
Yeah. Up to a 5th. That'll happen. I think Jalen Hurts will be gone by week 2, boys. I think Gardner Minshew will be in by week 2, and I absolutely love it. He deserves another opportunity. I actually was, it'll be interesting how Trevor Lawrence goes on in Jacksonville, but I think he's the answer there as well. I don't think Hurts is the answer, but I'm really intrigued to see how Devonta Smith comes into this offense. This is a team that needs to score points. The problem with this Eagles team is they probably won't. They might go a couple of weeks winning a couple of close games, might have a blowout in Philadelphia, and then going by the NFC East usual average, they'll lose 6 games in a row, and people will be calling for their heads. A new OC in Shane Steichen, I can't pronounce his surname. It's definitely not an Irish surname anyway. This team needs to pull up this year. It's not probably going to happen. Will they be there in December? I doubt it. I just can't see how the Eagles are going to keep it up with the Cowboys or Washington for me, and I think that they'll finish 3rd or 4th in the NFC East. This is a team that allowed 125.8 yards per game last season. I think it could be a wee bit higher this year. So it might not be the year for the Eagles. And Mark, you're looking at who I think is going to be the team to beat in the NFC East.
Michael, we're agreeing on something for some strange reason. This is crazy. The Eagles have a lot of trouble, actually, and problems with cornerbacks and offensive lines and all across the board. The Cowboys, yeah, Brian said it, every year. It's the Cowboys year. Every year. I mean, look at the paper. They should walk this division. They've clearly got more talent than the other teams put together, but they won't. They'll find some way to cowboy it. And unfortunately, the Giants are stuck in that purgatory at the moment where last season they lost a lot of games they should have won. They've got to learn how to win, first of all. But for me, the Washington football team, surprisingly, are actually in the ideal position to double on and double up their division win of last season, which was a bit surprised. They've actually made a lot of moves that make a lot of sense. They've increased the weapons on the offense. Now, they already had Terry McLaurin. Logan Thomas had a bit of a breakout year last year, obviously, and I think he can continue to evolve on that beyond. But they also brought in Adam Humphries. They brought in Curtis Samuel, which brings great speed to that wide receiver position as well. They've got Antonio Gibson and a really solid offensive line, but the offense is going to live or die on whether we see Fitzmagic or if we see Fitztragic. So Ryan, Harvard grad, you might not have heard that except on every single TV transmission whenever he's been on the field. But he's a very smart guy. He can hopefully succeed in that environment, and he's definitely got the weapons to play with. But really, a bit like the Bears, a bit like the Broncos, what the offense has to do is just not screw up, because the defense will carry this team one way or the other. 4 first-round picks featured on defense. The best D-line in football, even better than the Rams, because the sum of their parts exceeds Aaron Donald in my mind. Chase Young and Montez Sweat you hear a lot about. Jonathan Allen's probably the most criminally underrated player in the entire NFL. The best defensive tackle, not named Aaron Donald, in the entire league. But also Daron Payne as well is a really solid tackle there. That front four is supreme. And I think they've still got questions. William Jackson at corner, trying to replace, obviously, Ronald Darby, who went to the Broncos, is one particular piece that obviously in that secondary we're going to watch at. But they've got all the parts. What we need to do, Washington fans, including Anton DeBeck, our good friend who we talked to at Super Bowl time, is just send them some cable ties and some sticky tape and some padlocks. Because if we can lock away Dan Snyder for the season, they've actually got a chance to succeed.
Right, so we're all picking... Okay, Washington. Who are you picking?
Washington.
Oh, Jesus. You're not picking the Giants?
Nope.
Okay. Good.
Giants will make the Super Bowl on the wild card.
No.
Washington with an asterisk.
Washington. I actually think this is the year a team runs away with this division. I think Washington will win it by 5 or 6 games. Coming up next, we're going to look at the AFC. See you in a second. Welcome back into our season preview on the Irish NFL Show. Just 24 hours before the kickoff of the new season. God help all of us going to work on Friday morning, lads. I mean, that's a different conversation for a different day. Now is the part, as a Broncos fan, that I have been dreading for the whole show. We're going to talk about the AFC West, and I'm going to start off looking at the Los Angeles Chargers. We're in a situation now where the Chargers and the Rams are both playing in SoFi Stadium in LA, and now both teams have got the answers at quarterback. I cannot believe how good Justin Herbert is and how good he will be in the future. His rookie performance last season, Rookie of the Year, was one to be admired. And by getting rid of Anthony Lynn, this team has got serious potential. And I actually think bringing in Staley as head coach could be a masterclass of a move. Looking at guys that Justin Herbert has the option to throw to: Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen. And if that's not good enough, they got Mike Williams, Tyron Johnson, and Jalen Gooden. You know, just in case. The main issue they're going to have is this. They're in a division which is stacked. Is it stacked? I don't think the Raiders are going to be anywhere near them. I think the Chargers will win those 2 games. I think the Chargers will beat the Broncos home and away. There's 4 wins already. And the biggest question mark for this team comes in Kansas City. Can the Chargers go to Kansas City and win? Or can they at least beat them in LA? They need to win games in LA to continue to get fans on board, because the Rams are the Rams house and everybody in LA loves the Rams. But in the season in which SoFi Stadium has the Super Bowl, wouldn't it be interesting to see 2 LA teams in LA? Probably not going to happen, but there's a high chance one of them could get near it. Don't mean to talk about the Broncos, but the Broncos play the Chargers week 17 and the Chiefs week 18. I think that is key. Those 2 games, the 2-game stretch. I think the AFC West will go down to week 17 and week 18, but I think the Chargers and the Chiefs will be miles ahead of the other 2 teams. I think the Chargers will get a wild card spot, and personally I think Justin Herbert is on an eventual MVP journey. He'll probably be the MVP in the next 5 years in the league. Okay, Brian, will we just get the Raiders over with? Yeah.
No, I've high expectations for the Raiders this year.
Really?
Yeah, I really do. Not just because I have them, but I genuinely looking at them. I looked at last season. 8-8, 3 games in which they were winning with 1:45 to go, and they threw away the 3 games, all because of the defense. Ironically, Gruden has been critical for years on end, whether he's as a coach or whether he's in the box, of Gus Bradley. Gus Bradley is his new defensive coordinator. Makes no sense. 13 new players brought in on defense. You look at their offense. Derek Carr has had 3 seasons in a row, showing over 4,000 yards. People talk about Carr Jacob, the running back, Waller, the tight end. But they've also got Henry Ruggs. Oh, where's his name? Renfro, really efficient slot player last year. Really good player, very underrated. And then Edwards, just coming into a second year. Again, so Ruggs and Edwards could potentially make the step up in their second year. They brought in Kenyon Drake at running back. So for me, the offense will be the same offense that we saw last year. They will put up points. It's all on this defense. And for me, I actually think after all years of which Gruden was critical of Carr, I think we've got to a stage now where he's actually recognised Carr actually is a very efficient quarterback. And I'd argue if he was available tomorrow in a trade, there'd be 5-6 teams that would be jumping all over that, offering first-round picks to get him. The Raiders last year played, obviously all the teams played without any fans, but the Raiders have this thing now with Vegas. You know, they're going to have the crowds in. There's going to be a good feel about them. Monday Night Football against the Ravens week 1. I actually think the Raiders are going to be a surprise element this year.
And you can watch MNFIRE is just before the game, 10 o'clock live. We're live on Monday night for the first time in like 7 months. Bar draft, looking forward to that. Colin, I'm avoiding the Broncos conversation for another 2 minutes with Mark. You've got the Chiefs.
Yeah, so if you cast your mind back to February, there was a game, but a game requires 2 teams, and only one team showed up.
Big time.
And the Chiefs weren't just beaten; the Chiefs were annihilated. I mean, we are talking Broncos 49ers level of beatdown, and Patrick Mahomes was running for his life. I mean, he was already carrying injuries. He was knocked out cold in the game against the Browns, and then the Chiefs did that to him. If Mahomes wasn't as good as he is, Shaq Barrett would have set all sorts of Super Bowl records that would never have been equaled. So the Chiefs had to respond, and they did. Boy, did they respond. A brand new line to protect Mahomes. Because given the injuries, I mean, he's had a number of injuries over the last 2 years. When you have paid a guy nearly, $500 million, his contract in full, you've got to protect him. They've done that. How long it takes to click with the line, that'll be interesting. But they've used him a lot in pre-season. I mean, the issue for the Chiefs, the only issue is depth, right? They have Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Tyreek Hill. I mean, Kelce, I think it's in his 3 seasons with Mahomes, 1, 2, and 9 in terms of all-time receiving records for tight ends. It is ridiculous the connection those guys have. Even if there's a slight drop-off as Kelce turns 32, it's still going to be so far ahead of everyone else. The losing Sammy Watkins is a bit of an issue, but Watkins was always injured. They need McCall Hardman to step up there. The defense, they need more sacks. So Frank Clark and the Uzi incident, probably not ideal. Though it is also a team that needs fewer penalties, so not having Frank Clark, maybe that evens out. But look, the Chiefs are the team to beat in the AFC. It's as simple as that. They have Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid. They are ridiculous, and they are the gold standard in the AFC.
Yeah, they didn't show up in February, and Mahomes made a lovely, like almost like you're playing Madden and you're panicking, and he just threw the ball, and everyone thinks it was amazing. But anyway, spot the Broncos fan. You're talking Mad Hand Magic.
I'm talking the Broncos. God, this might get ugly. The thing about the Broncos for me this off-season is very clear. They're so worried about the Chiefs. Colin's just outlined. They've got all these weapons. So what have the Broncos done? They've doubled down in an area that I wouldn't have said was particularly weak in the first instance. They've doubled down on their defense. They've doubled down on their secondary. Bringing in Carl Fuller. Bringing in Terrence Trent Ronald Darby. I'm going to keep making that joke. But it's bringing in Ronald Darby. And then, of course, in the draft, Michael, you might remember they drafted Pat Surtain from Alabama, not Justin Fields, not a quarterback. I know it's a sore spot, but still.
It's a good pick, yeah.
So the secondary looks great. Is it no fly zone territory? Is it as good as the amazing secondaries we've seen from the Broncos? Possibly not, but they've got all the right pieces. They locked down Justin Simmons at safety as well, who we had on the show and is one of the top 3 safeties in the league, if not in the top 2, shall we say. But here's the thing. Von is back. Everything looks right, but there's still challenges. They're so reliant on Mike Purcell in terms of shoring up their run D, and I think that is possibly the weakness of their defense. And I'm kind of repeating myself, like the Bears, like Washington. The offense is the problem here, and whether they can get consistency. They had a great quarterback competition between the 5th and the 6th best quarterbacks in the AFC West. They finally made the right, yes, because I'd take Chad Henne over both of them. They finally made the right decision in terms of taking Teddy Bridgewater over Drew Lock. And Teddy Bridgewater, for me, can make the right decisions. He can be more consistent. He won't make the same errors. But, is he still going to be that Teddy Bridgewater we saw burst onto the scene with Minnesota? My heart says yes, but unfortunately my head says no. But can he be the Teddy Bridgewater we saw go 5-0 when he was a spot starter in the New Orleans Saints? Absolutely. And if they can get more consistent play, if I think they can get a bit more from another guest of the show, Noah Fant, in the receiving game, who can definitely take that step, but they need to see it. They can definitely elevate their game. They can definitely rise from the basement they've been residing in for the last few years in this division. But I don't feel it's going to be enough to really be a serious challenge, because they still have Vic Fangio, who is in the hall of great coordinators and crappy head coaches.
I actually think they'll get to the end of the year and sack him. I don't think they'll sack him mid-season. What record did we pick for this team on a different podcast?
It was 9-8.
9-8. Anyway,
9-8 ain't winning the division.
Yeah, sure. It's not even getting a wild card spot now.
Nope.
That's the problem in the AFC. Who's winning this division?
Chiefs.
Come on, Chiefs.
Chiefs with the Chargers breathing down their necks.
Yeah, Chiefs by a game or two. I think it'll be tight, but it'll be like the Grand National, and two have pulled away by the 15th fence. Okay, AFC North. We've got the Ravens, the Browns, the Bengals, the Steelers. Let's start off with Colin, the Browns. What a year in prospect. Is this finally the year they get over the hump? It
could be. The Browns, look, since they came back into the league in '99, they've done some terrible things. Hilariously bad at times, right? Some of their head coaching appointments, some of their quarterbacks. Some of their quarterbacks make the fact the Broncos had to play with no quarterback last year. The Browns did that for seasons at times, right? But they have the right guy in Kevin Stefanski. He is a fantastic head coach. And to do what he did, he justifiably coached the year last year in his first year. The big question, I suppose, for them is, what is Baker Mayfield? Josh Allen has got the big contract. The Browns, I think, want to see more from Mayfield. So they haven't pulled the trigger as yet on a new deal. But they have so much around him. He has so many weapons. Odell Beckham coming back, is that help or hinder? There are people last year who will tell you that Beckham going out helped the rest of the team. It'll be very interesting to see. But what really left them down ultimately last year was defense. And boy, did they look to address that. Oh my God. Fair play. Their general manager said, here's a problem. We're going to go sort it. Much like the Chiefs did with their O-line. They went out, free agency and the draft. They are a serious contenders. Beating the Steelers last year in the playoffs, was akin to reaching the promised land. I think they have the potential to go all the way this year, to really put it up to the Chiefs. I think given COVID, given vaccination, I think the Browns are the biggest threat to the Chiefs in the AFC.
Marky, the Steelers?
Yeah, and we've spent quite a bit of time on the Steelers in the show the last while.
The Irish Steelers show.
Our Steelers special was fantastic, and it was great to talk to Kevin Colberts, the general manager of the Steelers. And, you don't need me to give you a breakdown of how their draft picks are going. Just watch our show when he breaks down the top 4 draft picks and how he feels they're progressing. But clearly, obviously, the biggest change they've made is that pick of Najee Harris, the end of the first round, trying to regenerate the run game. The biggest problem, though, is that they need the offensive line to lean into that, and I think it's got weaker rather than stronger in that particular regard. Villanueva now obviously a Raven rather than a Steeler, the ex-Army Ranger, who was a very strong point for that. And this was one of the challenges for the Steelers last season. Yes, they were 10-0, and nothing should go undiminished about being 10-0, because to win 10 games in the National Football League is not easy, as Patriots, Giants, and Broncos fans know very well from last season. But it was always a weak 10-0, and it was based around a limited game plan, it felt, in terms of get the ball out quickly because the O-line can't hold up. When that ultimately broke down, the Steelers broke down, as you saw towards the end of last season, and the falling apart in the playoff game against the Browns. But Big Ben is back. He seems slimmer, he seems fitter, he seems healthier. He's now got Najee Harris to hopefully be exciting. They've sent Smith-Schuster, Claypool and Johnson, their dynamic offensive threats, to catching school for the entirety of the offseason and hope that they can learn how to catch a ball. And he has a new offensive coordinator in Matt Canada, and we'll see what he can do. Defense, not much wrong there. TJ Watt, he hopes will have another dynamic season, but they have lost Bud Dupree, which is a challenge. For me, this is a team that can make waves, be dynamic, be a challenge, but it's still a pretty tough division, especially with the Ravens and the Browns, and that is possibly a bridge too far for them to overcome to get to the promised land.
Mr. O'Leary has the Bengals. Are we going to go back to the 80s and see a resurgence in Joe Burrow?
I don't believe so. You touched on a tough division. I mean, arguably, again, one of the toughest divisions, in particular on the AFC side. But it doesn't make any sense. They've drafted Lamar Chase. He's been very poor. Again, you touched on it pre-season. How much can you take stock of it? But he hasn't looked really good. I felt their offense last year, the offensive line was very weak. They were 29th, 30th ranked. Joe Burrow was continuously under pressure, which inevitably led to his season-ending injury against Washington. So what do? You come to the draft, you've got the 5th pick, Penny sort of sitting there. People say he's like a Quinn and Nelson, he's going to be a generational offensive line player. No, you don't go with him, you go with Lamar Chase because he's had the LSU career with Joe Burrow, 1,780 yards, 20 touchdowns in college. But yeah, he didn't play the previous season because he opted out. It just doesn't make any sense. You solidify your quarterback because he's the long-term quarterback. He looks like he's the right quarterback for the team. Defensively, they brought in Hendrickson from the Saints, who was a really efficient pass rusher, but they've lost Lawson to the Jets, who in fact now is gone for the season. And William Jackson, one of the best cornerbacks in the league, he's gone to Washington. They've got young players. They look like they can make the step up. Some players that really improved last year. They're banking on that. Other players on the offense, Mixon, the running back, T. Higgins, second year, looked really efficient last year. Tyler Boyd. I felt he had the players there. They just needed to solidify the offensive line to be not challenging, but be competitive within the division. I think in the end, ultimately, that's what's going to be their downfall. Joe Burrow will have a difficult season. Zach Taylor, who we've had guests such as Michael Lombardi come on the show and been critical of him, I think he will lose his job next season. I don't think the Bengals are going anywhere fast. I think they'll be picking in the top 5 again come April next year.
They've got Joe Burrow injured once. They're about to get him injured again this season, the way they go.
Oh, I hope not.
There's always a big injury. There's always a big injury with a quarterback at some point. Will it happen in the AFC this year? I meant to say that in the last division talk, if you get my drift there. I have the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, who is 30-7 as a regular season starter on a rookie deal, gentlemen. Cheapest chips, as we say in the north. 1-3 in the postseason. This Ravens team, this is a very similar situation to the Seahawks. They need to win, and they need to win now. Lamar Jackson's coming up to a contract. Has he been vaccinated? No. Has he got an agent?
No.
Nope.
Okay. They have an Asian defensive line in Calais Campbell and Brandon Williams. And also, I guess, Marvin Humphrey is good in the secondary. This team has what I think it needs to get over the line in terms of the playoffs. Can they go further? I don't think so. I'm really interested to see how Lamar Jackson can go after an MVP season in 2019, regressing a little bit last year. He's got Mark Andrews. He's got Brown to float. So I just think they'll get to the playoffs and one and done again, boys. I really do. I think but I think the most intriguing thing there is, if that does happen, where does Jackson go next year? Or does he stay with the Ravens? Does he get his pay? What happens? Because then they're stuck. They can't afford all these players.
Yeah, Michael, I was going to give a stat, and it's relevant for Broncos fans with Brandon Bowles there at tackle, to be honest with you, but very much for the Ravens as well. Last season, 40.1% less offensive holding calls, and the officials have said they're going to make offensive holding a point of emphasis this season. So teams that have got away maybe with a bit of holding in the past, Ravens run game, I kind of put it to you, will not have that same flexibility this season.
56% of the plays called by the Ravens over the past 2 years has been run game. They've lost J.K. Dobbins, who looked like he was fast emerging as one of the best running backs in the league. He's gone for the season, injured during let's call it a meaningless preseason game, which is unfortunate for them, but I still think they'll be effective enough to make sure they're in the playoffs.
wild card, and that shows you how difficult it is to get in the wild card in any conference, never mind AFC or NFC. One and done, in my opinion. AFC South.
Oh, winners.
Are we picking a division?
Pick a division
Pick a
winner.
winner.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna pick the Browns. Yeah, what are you gonna pick?
Yeah, the Browns for me. I mean, after so many seasons of heartbreak, the Browns are the favourites, and justifiably so, for this division.
Ravens.
Marty McFly just turned up. Can't believe we're saying it. The Browns.
The Browns, boys. Going to be an interesting year for the AFC.
These are all going Browns. That's the fourth time I can remember that.
Coming up after the break, we have a final look. AFC South, AFC East. Please stay with us. I know it's late. Please. Welcome back into the Irish NFL Show season preview, 24 hours to the season starts. We have somehow managed to go through the whole of the NFL. We've got 2 divisions to go. The AFC South, gentlemen. I'm going to start off with the Titans. My goodness gracious me. If the Titans don't do it now, they're never going to do it. Do you know, 5 years ago, I actually thought to myself that Ryan Tannehill would never amount to anything in this league, and look at him now. It's like whenever Nigel Farage went to the European Parliament. You all laughed at me. Well, you're not laughing now. What a team he has, gentlemen. Seriously, this Titans team, I really thought they would go further last year. I actually thought they might have got to the Super Bowl. I never publicly said that, but they're very, very good. Derrick Henry's incredible. He became the 8th 2,000-yard rusher in NFL history last year, leading the league in rushing yards and rushing touchdowns for a second straight season. King Henry, king of Tennessee, king of the North, potentially as well. Unbelievable, gentlemen. Look, if you haven't got Derrick Henry, you got AJ Brown. This team's incredible. This, for me personally, and I know I'm going to ruin these 3 gentlemen's chats. For me, they run away with this division, boys. They run away with it, and it's very similar to the Ravens. You'd have to start asking questions if the Titans don't get to the championship game. I really think that. Where will they be in 12 months' time? Titans are going to run away with this for me. It's not even a discussion, boys. Brian, you've got the Colts. Carson Wentz is in Indianapolis.
Colts, and to be honest, probably I suppose the challengers for the division, who people will expect to run the Titans close, if not win the division. The Colts have had, you're talking about other teams having crazy off seasons. Like Ballard and Frank Reich, the head coach, must be scratching their heads at the situation. This is the 4th year in a row they've had a new quarterback. They bring in Carson Wentz. A lot of people felt time was done in Philadelphia. He was continuously injured. A lot of people argued that he was injured because of the offensive line was so poor. They bring him in. He gets a foot injury. They then say he's gone for 4 to 8 weeks. It looks like he's gone for the foreseeable. Then he's back very quickly after the operation. In the meantime, Quinton Nelson, the offensive line guy, he also gets a similar injury. He's gone for the foreseeable. They've now lost T.Y. Hilton. We interviewed Stephen Holder just before the draft. He works for the Athletic, the Colts beat writer. He said, never mind Wentz, T.Y. Hilton is this team. He's gone for the first half of the season. Injury after injury. Then Wentz comes back. Then the realization kicks in. He's not vaccinated. Quinn Nelson's not vaccinated. He does a press conference today. He says, people just need to trust me. It's a bit of a mess, really, And then you look at players, Pittman, wide receiver last year, very efficient, came in. A lot of things spoke about him. They expect him to make a step up. For me, 2 games in particular last year, he played really well. You could see why they drafted him. Packers at home, they came back and beat them, and the Titans when they beat them. Defensively, DeForest Buckner has been their best player. They traded for him last year from the 49ers. He had 26 hits on the quarterback last year. Double the amount of the whole defensive line. So straight away, you go to the draft, Quiddy Pay and the second one, I can't recall his name, but they brought in another edge rusher. So straight away, they've recognised they're not getting to the quarterback, they're not getting hits. 9.5 sacks by DeForest Buckner, again, the most. So for a linebacker to be beating all of the defensive line out is a concern. Their secondary, they brought Xavier Rhodes back. Rocky Sin hasn't stepped up to what they expected. There's too many question marks for me. I would like to see the Colts be challenging. I'd like to see them win the division, but I don't see it because of all the things I've just laid out there. They will be a really good team, and on the day, they could probably beat any team within the league, even the Chiefs. But for me, too many risks. I see Carson Wentz getting injured during the season, and in fact, that will derail their season.
They locked down Darius Leonard to a long-term deal as well, and he's such a key player. But, I mean, you want to talk about dysfunction? I think Colin might have you beat in a minute when we get onto the Texans.
Do you want to go for it?
Well, I want to take you back. I'm doing that a lot, but I want to take you back to January 12th, 2020. And the Houston Texans were 24 points to 7 up on the Kansas City Chiefs. Barring disaster, they were going to the AFC Championship. That was a year and a half ago. A year and a half ago. What happened? They collapsed. Chiefs 40 unanswered point. The free fall has not stopped for the Texans since. This is the worst team in the league. Make absolutely no mistake about that. Last year was bad. This year will be infinitely worse. Okay? They have a franchise QB who doesn't want anything to do with them, but now they don't want anything to do with him. Nobody wants anything to do with him. That's a mess of a situation. The league doesn't want anything to do with it. It's a disaster. But that's only one part of it. They have a new head coach who looks out of his depth already. I feel sorry for him. What a mess he's walked into. They have a new general manager who made 79 moves between January 7th and the end of May. 79. 22 new players on offense, 27 new players on defense. I mean, do the players know each other's names? They brought in Tyrod Taylor. They're paying them $5.5 million. They had no picks, hardly any picks in the draft. What did they do with their third round pick? They went and they got a quarterback. Genius. They brought in Jeff Driscoll, who the Broncos had paid a fortune to, who I've seen in person. He can't throw the football, right? So now they have 4 QBs, none of whom are serviceable this year. I mean, like, they wanted to end training camp early and kick the media out. Look, the roster is bad. The coaching will likely be bad, but the leadership is non-existent. I mean, it is just horrific, and you have the sword of Damocles that is the Deshaun Watson situation hanging over the franchise. Texans fans, you deserve better, but there's no measure that this team isn't the worst. It is horrific. It is an embarrassment to Roger Goodell, who has done a great job for over the past couple of years. This is on you, Roger Goodell. This is a nightmare scenario. And to add to how bad the Texans are, the AFC South could be this year's NFC East.
Just a big shout out to Houston Texans, Ireland, the big fans.
You haven't swapped allegiance or anything, have you? You just seem more passionate about the Texans than you do about the Broncos.
Philip Lindsay's in for the running back. Let's just move on to the Jaguars.
Well, I mean, I was about to say, I feel passionately about the mess that's in the Texans, which you can put at the feet of Jack Easterby, who's the Cardinal Richelieu, shall we say, behind the scenes there in the Texans quite a bit as well. I'm not sure I blame Roger Goodell as much as you are, Carl, but it is telling that a side who has lost 15 games in a row, that went last season 1-15, is less dysfunctional and less screwed up than one of the other teams in its own division. The Jacksonville Jaguars, in fact, I think probably one of the most apt descriptions I can give is this year they've been a blockbuster. Like, it's been blockbuster moves with Urban Meyer coming in, Trevor Lawrence, the number 1 pick. So, of course, it's only appropriate that you can't go to the cinema and watch the blockbusters in the middle of COVID, because that's probably the only way you get a Jacksonville blockbuster as things go on. Look, we can talk in detail about the Jags roster and about the various things they have to improve. Sacks are a major thing. Allen and Smoot, they'd like to see it take a big leap. Last season, only 18 sacks as a team, the second worst in the entire league, only just pipping the Bungles, who only had 17. So there is a lot to improve in so many different things. I think Meyer will improve the depth, but we are talking a 2, 3, 4 year project. The only thing that matters this year is very simple. Travis Etienne is already out on IR for the season, a huge loss. So to every offensive lineman, reserve offensive lineman, potential offensive lineman, Jacksonville Jaguars fan, learn from Royce Gracie, even Kurt Angle, even Conor McGregor, for Christ's sake, and tackle and hold and wrestle every pass rusher to the ground. We don't care as fans of this game if you give up 5 million yards in penalties. But for the love of God, don't do a Bengals who got Joe Burrow injured, and protect Trevor Lawrence, because he is your franchise for the next 15 years. And that is the entirety of the goal of the Jacksonville Jaguars season this year.
Who we got? AFC South?
It has to be the out of shape Mike Vrabel and the Tennessee Titans.
I love Mike Vrabel. I have the Titans by the Immaculate Conception, that December the 8th. Yeah. Even before that, to be honest with you. Who's got?
Yeah, it's Titans.
In the summer, I had the Colts, but with everything that's gone on, it's now the Titans.
The Colts. I love the pick. Right, finally, before we look at our wild card and Super Bowl picks, quick enough this division, let's say Patriots and stuff. AFC East. Brian, do you want to start us off? Is Tua going to start in Miami? What's going on?
Yeah, I've got high hopes for the Dolphins this year. 5-11 to 10-6 last year, and missed the playoffs. I think it was the first team to miss the playoffs since the Patriots back in 2009 when Matt Castle led them on a 10-6 record. Tua, people were kind of critical of him last year, but I think it was very much a game management situation last year. Now they're saying, if you read all the Dolphins beat writers and what we've seen out of training camp, it's more an offense geared towards him. It's a run-pass option, a heavy offense. They've got some great players in terms of wide receivers. Will Fuller's been brought in from the Texans, so he's glad to get out of Column's new team, the Texans. But Jalen Waddle, for me, he's going to be the rookie of the year, wide receiver. Went sixth in the draft. And then you've got players like Parker, Gesicki. Bit of a concern on the defensive line. You know, they brought in Jalen Phillips in the draft. You know, maybe fortunately for him, it might work out because he's come out of Miami College and he's gone straight into the Miami Dolphins. So the transition, staying in the area, that might help him. Then in the secondary, very efficient. Xavier Howard looked like he was going to get traded. Thankfully, he's going to stay. The other side, it's a bit of a risk. The guy they brought in from the Cowboys last year, Byron Jones, he just didn't light it up and he's been paid a lot of money. But for me, the Dolphins, having gone 10-6 last year, have only improved the team. Flores, a couple of years ago, people were critical. It looked like they were kind of trying to make sure they had the first round picks, and in the end, I think they had the 4th or 5th, and Tua was picked ahead of Herbert. But for me, the Dolphins are trending in the right direction, and I believe they will be in the playoffs come January.
Colin, the Jets.
Yeah, so this time I'm going to take you back to 1988, okay?
I wasn't born.
Stuttgart?
Ray Houghton. 1988, the Green Bay Packers, right, who we now know as this juggernaut who wins all the time. All they had to do was lose one of their final 2 games, and they had the number 1 pick. And what were they going to do? They were going to take Troy Aikman, right? That's what they were going to do in the 1989 draft. Happy days. What happened? Packers won those 2 games because you can't tank in the league. And as a result, they drafted an offensive tackle. Now, as it happened, kind of worked out well for them, given what was to follow in the years ahead with Favre and Rodgers. But it's a sliding doors moment, okay? And that is what we had with the Jets last year. The Jets looked historically bad, like so bad. We were convinced that Trevor Lawrence was on his way to be Broadway Trevor. But that's not what happened. It is Broadway Zach. I think even more than the Zach Wilson, right? And look, the Jets, another team who have gone through QB purgatory, and everyone who comes in has huge expectations. But the best thing that happened to your franchise, Adam Gase is no longer involved. What a nightmare. I mean, my one concern about the Lions, you're saying that the press conference are interesting. From day one, do you remember the eyes? I mean, it was a nightmare from the off. So I think for the Jets, things can only get better. But to lose a really important piece in Lawson is a hammer blow. They've made some really good moves. They've got a really good head coach, I think, in Robert Saleh, and he's brought in a really interesting OC in Mike LaFleur. I expect them to be better than they were. They have to be better than they were. The debacle is over. Expect to see them run probably a similar sort of mini San Francisco type thing. I'm interested to see the tweaks. I really want to see what Wilson can do because he has an incredible arm, and I think they can get him moving. Look, they're still, given the division that they're in, it's going to be tough, but I think there is a lot of hope on the horizon for the Jets.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting division. Now, we actually, for anybody wondering how we split this up, we split it up into, I think, 8 teams each a few weeks ago. So I, for the last 3 weeks, have been preparing my Patriots mantra, my Patriots preview. And then Bill had to go and release Cam Newton on Tuesday. So thank you very much for that, Bill. Really appreciate that. Don't get it. Don't understand why it happened. Even if you wanted to start Mac Jones, 100%. But why get rid of him? Doesn't make sense. This is a guy that literally, on his day, could run 45, 50 yards in one play. Doesn't happen for the Patriots. I know it doesn't fit their scheme. But even as a backup, even as experience, even if he, God forbid, tested positive for COVID, I know he's not vaccinated, but have the experience. And I don't personally get it. Mac Jones looked great in preseason. Justin Fields looked great in preseason. How did Ryan Leaf look in preseason? Because I wasn't, I didn't watch it that year. Did he look good? Efficient. Okay, grand. I hope Mac Jones plays well. He's not skinny. He's a bit like me. He's not built that great. For that reason, I hope he plays well. I don't think he'll win the division with the Patriots. I just don't get the strategy. If he doesn't have a great season, where is Bill Belichick going to go with his team? Does he give him 3 or 4 years? Does he? Do you think he will? I don't think he will, personally. But look, other side of the ball, Dante Hightower coming back. He opted out last year. Cal Van Noy coming back in free agency. Matt Judon. I can't pronounce the guy. Raycon McMillan as well. Yeah. Gilmore's key. But he's out until week 7 or so?
He's on short-term IR, yeah.
Yeah, it's week 7. Jonathan Jones. But for Mac Jones, Hunter Henry now enters as part of the epitome of how good can this offense be? Who is going to replace Julian Edelman? It's a completely different team. It's like whenever Ferguson left Man United and they brought all these boys in, sure, it'll be grand. We'll finish top 4. Did it happen? No, it didn't. So I remain convinced to be seen if Mac Jones is the answer for this team. They can't rely on defense all season. They can't. But when you've got a coach like Bill Belichick, who is one of the greatest, probably the greatest coach of all time, after Vince Lombardi, technically, or Vic Fangio after this year. Oh dear God. I actually think the Patriots will miss the playoffs again this year. I really do. So I'm just going to leave it there because I don't want to annoy Mark. Mark, you've got a team that should probably challenge for the Super Bowl.
No, they should, absolutely. Damien Harris, all I'm going to say, Pats fans, don't worry, we haven't forgotten about him. He's going to do things. But the Bills 100% should challenge for the Super Bowl. I was trying to think of an analogy. What Bills fans need this year is they need to be like gremlins. They need to get fed after midnight and just get a little bit nastier and get a little bit more ugly and get through those games. Because last season was an amazing season. Josh Allen, near MVP level, obviously came 3rd, I think, in the voting. Fantastic season. They need to keep that, but they need to get away from the pretty stuff as well. Their defense showed softness last year, which ultimately cost them. Their offensive line kept Allen clean, but didn't punch holes in the run game. And an awful lot, if we're talking about difficulties or holes, and it's difficult because it's a really, really talented roster and a really good team, but Devin Singletary needs to take a step up at running back, and the running game for the Bills needs to take a major step up. Defense, they are loaded, probably the best safety duo on tandem in the league. They've got Tre'Davious White, who absolutely locks down one corner position. So if I'm looking for gaps, Levi Wallace, the ball is going to come to you if you're starting at the second cornerback position a hell of a lot this season in relation to it. But now we have some weird scenario in Buffalo. Josh Allen is the veteran in this division. Josh Allen at 25 with a couple of seasons is the money man who's not only got his big contract, but he is regarded as the experienced quarterback for at least 6 games against his fellow division teams. 2 rookies and Tua, who could basically be a rookie with only a few games last season. At the wide receiver position and the weapons, he's still got Gabriel Davis. He's still got the incomparable Stefon Diggs, who is up there at the top echelon of all wide receivers. But he has this grenade, shall we say, in Cole Beasley. And in terms of what could happen during the season with COVID, with the various ways in which the league rules are going to play out and everything, which could unfortunately lead to some derailing. They needed to improve on edge. They've done that with some clever draft picks. They've done that indeed with free agency. Our friend Efe Oboda, who's also joined them and might provide some situational pass rush. They should walk this division. They should be in the AFC Championship game. And the Bills, if you play to your potential, you should, for the first time since 1991, be back in the Super Bowl.
So we all got the Bills division. Anybody not agreeing? You think Dolphins? Maybe?
No Bills, yeah.
Bills.
I just think there's a big asterisk because I think the AFC vaccine is going to play a key role because there are so many teams: Ravens, Titans, Bills, Colts. Titans are, but they still seem to have the outbreaks for whatever reason. It was the same last year. I think vaccination and COVID is going to play a big role in the AFC.
Obviously getting into the winter months as well, who knows what's going to happen. Hopefully everyone will be fine. Very quickly, and thank you for staying with us the whole time here. Let's look at very, very quickly, gentlemen, our wildcard picks, our championship picks, who play each other in the championship, and who is going to play each other in the Super Bowl and win the Lombardi Trophy. Let's go from this side. I'm just going to start with you, Mark, and we'll go all the way over. So go on.
Okay, so wild cards I've got in the NFC, I've got the Seahawks, Vikings, and Giants being my 3 wild cards.
49ers, Seahawks, and Giants.
49ers, Seahawks, and Falcons.
49ers, Cardinals, and Packers. Yeah. AFC. Do you want to start off, Mark?
Yeah, AFC, it's actually very tough in the AFC, but I've got the Chargers, the Ravens, because the Browns win in the AFC South, and then the Pats.
The Browns, I was the only one to pick the Ravens. So the Browns, I said high on the Dolphins, 10-6 last year. I believe they'll be in the playoffs. And the Raiders.
I have the Chargers, unsurprisingly. I have the Patriots because I think Mac Jones is going to be very good. And I think getting that defense back, I think he suits their system. I think you rip the Band-Aid off. I think there's nonsense talking about QB sitting. Justin Herbert showed. Justin Herbert had no preseason. Justin Herbert didn't play in a preseason game this year. It's meaningless. Get out there, play. Mac Jones, the Patriots are going to be very dangerous, especially in terms of with all the vaccine stuff. And a surprising one, Dolphins, because I really think the Ravens are going to suffer. Lamar Jackson's had COVID twice and says he still won't get vaccinated. Right. Yeah, if you've got it twice, what kind of situations are you putting yourself in? That could be a real issue. I don't think the league is going to look favourably on it at all this year. So Chargers, Pats, and Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, God forbid they play a game without a quarterback. That would be nuts, wouldn't it? I have the Chargers, the Ravens, and the Steelers in my wild cards. Right, really quickly, gentlemen, both title games, AFC Championship, NFC Championship. Mark, go ahead.
I hate to say it because it's going to sound boring, but I can't personally see beyond Bucks versus Packers and Bills versus Chiefs. Again, a complete repeat. I can see arguments for different things, but I see all those 4 teams being the class apart together.
Who have you got winning it all then in the Super Bowl?
I've got Tom Brady and the Bucks win all again.
Oh,
Going first repeat since 03 and 04 when the quarterback was, let me remember, Tom Brady. But seriously, out of all of it, of course things can go wrong, but they're the class act and they can do it.
Who you got, Mark? Or sorry, Brand?
NFC, I have the Packers at the Rams. And on the AFC side, despite the Lamar Jackson situation, despite J.K. Dobbins going, I still think they weren't too far off beating the Bills in that playoff game. I have the Ravens at the Chiefs, and my Super Bowl will be the Packers against the Chiefs, with the Chiefs getting the trophy back.
And Rodgers to lose his last game in Green Bay. Ooh! Colin, what do you got?
I have Rams Bucks on the NFC side. I just think the other piece that Mark's talked about, the fact they brought back the starters, 100% vaccination, right? Look, when Tom Brady does something, follow what he does because he's usually right in doing it. The other thing is they brought back all of their coaching staff, all of their coordinators. That's huge. Yeah. On the AFC side, I have Chiefs against the Browns, but in the Super Bowl, I think it's Bucks-Browns. I think if they stay healthy, it should be the Chiefs. But we haven't seen the Chiefs deal with Tyreek Hill out for a long time or Travis Kelce. If they were to lose one of those two, that's why I think it's Bucks-Browns. I think Tom Brady wins another ring.
And you haven't mentioned another guy for the Chiefs that could get injured and would have a massive impact. Patty Mahomes. Can I have the trophy, please, just for 2 seconds? I have the Rams against the Bucks in the NFC Championship game. I've got the Bills against the Titans in the AFC. We all know from last year my infatuation with the Bills. They're not going to win it. Matthew Stafford is going to win the Super Bowl. A team is going to win it in their home city. For the second year in a row, the Rams are going to beat the Bills to win the Super Bowl. That's my pick, gentlemen. I think Sam Monson will kill me for saying that, because remember he said about the whole situation. But that's my pick. Lads, thanks a million for joining us today in our secret bunker location in North Dublin. Thanks a million to Matthew as well for the camera work. And that is us. We're back tomorrow night for our preview of the Rams. Not the Rams. Wow. The Bucks and the Cowboys in the NFL kickoff. We'll see you at 9 o'clock. And thank you very much, lads. See you soon.
Thank you.
Cheers.